First of all, thank you all for joining us on a Saturday morning, sacrificing the family and also uh, normally the weekend Saturdays to overcome the release burdens, the all pain in office, manager hassles and everything. So thank you all for joining in on a Saturday morning. So as Krishnan mentioned, our topic for today is a DevOps, a cultural shift. And I guess our panel, our previous conversations pretty much set the context. That DevOps is not a set of tools like Jenkins, GitHub, Chef, Puppet and all. It's primarily a cultural shift that we need to bring in. And but to do this, the primary focus of this conversation of panel will be that how to set this cultural shift. We are talking about collaboration in senior engineering. So there are conflicts around, right? So the practical approach, how can we solve it? Then more to Ramanathan. So in brief about Prasad, Prasad is a mechanical engineer and he has worked across almost all domains, right? So he has worked in cloud security, supply chain, e-commerce, whatnot. And in the past he has worked with Novel Intergraph and presently he is working in Aptin and managing the DevOps and the cloud operations. So we have a person who knows who is from a DevOps background and also who is from a pure development background. So we have tried to make the panel with different roles so that can set the context. So the second is Tina. Please welcome Tina Chatterjee. Tina is having 13 years of industry experience and she has worked in both enterprise companies like NetApp, LSI, and also over the last few years she has been working in internet companies like Amazon, Sprinkler, Lithium. So all the scenarios we're talking about, multiple releases a day, challenges, builds breaking, reverts. So probably he has handled teams who have really faced it. So we're going to hear good things from her. And third, we're going to welcome Ashlesha Nalgirkar. So Ashlesha is having almost 14 years of experience. So please give a welcome to Ashlesha. So Ashlesha is having 14 years of experience and she is also coming with the first experience starting from kernel development to predictive analytics and she has worked across companies like HP, 24/7 Innovation Labs and presently she is working in Lithium Technologies as a dev manager. So that is our panel, so let's get kickstarted.
You want a different chair or something?
I think so. That would be
Okay,
better.
alright, sure.
Yes, yeah.
This one is okay?
Yeah.
Well, first question I guess to the panel is, we're talking about collaboration, work together, all these things, right? The DevOps principles. But we would like to hear from the panel that how you have seen it working in your present or previous organization, you're working towards it. So Prasad, can you throw something?
So, prior to being in a DevOps world, the frequent statements that you hear from Dev and QA is either it works on my machine. Right?
Are you guys able to get the panel member? Then last? All fine? Please. Thank you.
It works on my machine, right? QA says the same thing with support. It works on our machines, right? That's the first breakdown of communication. You're not working together. The tendency was for people to fix it, check it in, and then move on to the next thing, without really working together to do this. Right? The tools and other things came apart eventually as part of the DevOps stuff, but where we started off is to make sure that we are talking, right? Work together, be part of the same sprint. I think a lot of this is agile. And as we went from agile into figuring out what are the next steps, okay, we claim we are agile. We were not agile, we were practicing agile. But then if you really wanted to do deliveries by the end of a sprint, potentially shippable code, we need to do better. We can't have dev sitting here writing code one sprint and then throwing it across the wall to QA who will test the next sprint. Right? That's the position we were in. And that's where we started with the need for DevOps, break down barriers. And this was a cloud product. So the kind of time to market that we had between when the requirements came in to when it actually reached the customer was immensely large. Right? And the industry had moved forward and we were like still trying to solve problems that were solved like 10 years ago by various other companies. So we looked around, figured out that this could be a potential solution to solve that problem. Right? We started small, we started with the tools and also started with training. We got a DevOps coach, a consultant, who walked the teams through what DevOps is all about in a lot more detail, and I know our earlier speakers did a commendable job of presenting what the concept is in a 1 hour session. It's not easy, believe me, right? We had a 3 or 4 day, I think it was a 4-day full day sessions, which talked about what DevOps is, why do we need DevOps, and it was only towards the end of second day that we actually got into the tools. Right? It's about the cultural shift. What is it and what it is not. And he did a fabulous job of setting expectations of what not to expect from it. It's not going to solve all your problems. It can solve certain problems. It may cause new problems if you don't do it right. So we started there, and then after this we slowly started off with working together, started with the tools, one step at a time. We had a broken down CI. We had very little automation to start with, and the person who had written the automation was long gone. People knew that the scripts are there in the source control system, but they were not figuring out, they were not able to use it. We started from there, and one thing at a time. The good thing that we felt that critical is you need someone on the management who drives it, right? Executive manager. You need an executive sponsor who believes in this idea. Right? There will be times when you feel that it's not working, right? It's pretty frustrating, and it may seem very tempting for developers and QA to go back to what they were doing, right? Because you were more productive at that point. And you are going through the rigmarole of learning the tools and making those cultural shifts, right? It's always, but then we have always done it this way, right? For so many years we've done it this way. That was the culture. So we have to move away from that, figure out what the problems are. Having an expert helped. He stayed the consultancy and the training with the DevOps person lasted for about 4 days, after which we had what was known as a DevOps coach. Right? We've heard of agile coaches who are either groomed in-house or they are external consultants, right? There's a similar concept called DevOps coach. So he is part of the organization for about an extended period of 4 to 6 weeks. He took us through the process of how do you collaborate. Right?
So how do you feel like, is it someone coming from external, assessing your current organization situation, that will help, or based on your experience, or what do you suggest?
It's a combination of both. Right? You need someone who's done it before. If you have somebody in-house, well and good. Otherwise, the first thing that we found beneficial is to get somebody from outside, get an expert in, and then he identifies a few people who are high energy, right? who can look beyond immediate obstacles and keep the big picture in mind. Right? We groomed a few people inside.
Sure, thanks. That's a very good insight. So, Ashlesh, what do you want to question? So, what we are seeing is, as companies, they're moving to digitization and all. What they're forming is I want to go to DevOps. I form a DevOps team. Let me form a DevOps team. One manager, 3 DevOps engineers, and let's do DevOps. It's the same thing, another one. So we are working in collaboration and all. So how can another team going to solve it? So what is about your experiences in the process?
So I will talk about my experience in my previous company. So we had a separate DevOps team, and they came in. The DevOps team was helpful in setting up the tools and processes for us. We had a very broken build process. We had a very broken CI/CD process. So DevOps team was very much useful to create an organization-wide infrastructure for us in terms of having Jenkins and Chef transformation. So the company actually hired external consultants, especially for doing our Chef deployments. So earlier deployments were very legacy, platinized deployments were there, which is the earlier version of our Dockers. So any deployment used to take us, just after the code is ready, to get it in production used to take weeks for us. Even though the product, which is an internet product, it's a real-time product, any downtime is like causing money, and we need to have 99.9% uptime, it was not helping. So having a third party doing that was very helpful according to me. And what helped is the external consultancy worked with our team for around 1 year, not just 1 day. So they helped us transform the whole development and the whole deployment process. So Chef is the tool that we used, and Jenkins for the continuous pipeline. Having them sitting next to us and helping them develop the recipes, understand it, it was not just a 1 day job for us. And it embedded the culture in our team. So right now, every person in the team knows how to build that recipe. Every person in the team knows that any change that they are doing, any dependency they are introducing, they are responsible to ensure that it works up to production. So that was very helpful according to me.
So, what do you suggest? Like, since you were saying it's really working, that the DevOps engineer, if he sets up the pipeline, all this, after some time he should sign out, and the team should take up this responsibility. So, do you feel that this is a model that works?
It has worked for us.
Okay.
The reason being, a team knows what we are building, right? A team owns everything from conceptualization to the production. So they'll know what is going to work for them, what is not going to work for them. A DevOps team can help in setting organization-wide guidelines. It's a fine balance that we will need to have, wherein if every teams are working in silos, then we'll have a breakage of communication, and then we don't know company-wide practices, especially if you're a large organization. So I feel that certain teams having always helps, but that team should not be a primary owner for each and every thing that is being developed, is what I see in working.
Okay, fine, great. So we understand that DevOps is not a separate role. Everyone has a role to play, the developer, the QA, the product owner, everyone. So as a DevOps practitioner, as a developer, what are the roles we expect him to play, let's say for an established organization? If you can throw some lights.
It is tempting to have a shared team called DevOps team.
Okay.
And the key thing is to make sure that they just don't remain focused on the tools. Because with the evolution of DevOps, a lot of tool sets have emerged. Right? I mean, we have seen the number of tools that Jatin showed in his presentation, immense. Right? It is very tempting for organizations to get all the people with those skill set and put them into a DevOps role, and then make them in charge and responsible for the tools, while developers go about coding and then hand it off to them. Right? That's just introducing yet another seller.
Correct.
Right? In terms of role play, what is important is for developers to know a little bit of the tool set, enough to operate it. Okay, once as Lisa said, they set it up, and then the developers start picking it up. Right? So there are no clear-cut roles. The roles merge at some point. Right? And once the DevOps team has set up your CI/CD, your pipelines, and your artifactories, and the tools are set up, unless you're creating new environments or anything, it's business as usual. Right? That's when the opportunity comes for DevOps to start getting into the development side of things. When features are being built, they participate in the feature discussions. Right? New roles have evolved. If you look at it, you have roles now called DevOps architects. You have cloud architects. Right? They didn't exist previously. They now exist because it is in the name of collaboration. The teams are working more closely together. So DevOps, in my view, cannot be a standalone role. It's got to merge with development. If you look at it from a product engineering point of view, when you expand your horizon and then talk about the IT operations side, right? That's where the cloud architects come into the play, right? They are good on the cloud infrastructure side and the IT side. And they're also good on how to architect products for the cloud. They are also seeping into development. So in my view, you have people with roles, but they are interchangeable hats, and they need to be flexible enough to wear different hats from time to time.
Okay, makes sense.
I just wanted to add a point here, because I come precisely from a quality background, and I have seen a major paradigm shift working from NetApp to Amazon to LSI and now Sprinkler and Lithium, right? So the major change that I have seen is the mindset of who is the owner for quality. So earlier in NetApp and LSI, what I saw was quality stakeholders were only the QA team. And now in Amazon and in Lithium, Sprinkler, with very fast deployments, and to be able to ship code very early, right? What we have seen is quality stakeholders are considered to be the entire organization. It's not specific to QA per se, it is specific to, it can relate to development, it can relate to professional services, it can relate to customer support, quality, anybody, even the product management, right? So quality for the organization is the ownership of everyone. And that is where I think DevOps plays a very important role in changing that mindset. And that is where I've seen the places taking a leap there in terms of, being able to collaboratively work and create quality metrics as their primary milestone.
But then, but then what happens is there are so many companies today who are just getting into DevOps or trying it out, not getting into DevOps, have recruited so many QA professionals, right? I mean, the whole department of QA professionals.
Yeah.
Now in DevOps, we're saying that suddenly you have to wear all kinds of hats, right?
That's right.
Infrastructure department hat, developers hat,
Yes.
all kinds of hat, right?
Yeah.
Production hat. So the
Right.
QA engineers, so are we saying that, engineers whom we have hired, companies have hired, with a certain notion in mind, will have to be retrained, the skills have to be modified?
Yeah.
Are we something?
So in terms of the skill set, what I feel is that definitely some upliftment is needed, and we have to be at par with the latest trends and the tools, technologies. That holds good for any function in the organization, right? Be it QA, be it dev, anyone. But where this collaborative approach happens, I feel developers are more responsible for testing out the code now, and QAs are more responsible for enabling that the code doesn't have bugs, and for enabling test early in the cycle. That is where QA is playing more of a coder kind of a role, and the developer is also playing more of a tester kind of role. So that is where the collaboration and the paradigm shift is happening. And definitely when we are hiring people, I think that is one of the mindset we need to test in that person, whether he is totally adaptable to the new changes that are coming in, and how much of a change and a drive he feels to bring in there, right? So it is not the conventional.
Because I think in Vijay's presentation,
57%.
50% is people's attitude
Absolutely, the
towards
attitude,
DevOps
right?
adoption.
So learning, so what I feel is we should hire people for their attitude and not for their skills, because skills can be trained and groomed, right? But the attitude is very difficult to train. So that is something, even as a manager while recruiting, I have seen, and I feel that that is one of the areas we have to probe into when we take people on board.
So the capability to learn new things is what you
Exactly.
should look for. not-
Adapting to changes. So
not-
we can't be in a silo and continue doing
Right.
the same thing and not grow ourselves.
Great. So before we get into more details about it, I guess for most of us here, since we are from a quality background, whenever you make a release or we are before a release, it's a nightmare for us, right? Something not working, dependence is not working, all these things. So is DevOps really making a difference in that area, Tina, or how do you feel?
Yeah, so first of all, coming again to the quality of the product, right? So the way we are categorizing or distributing or refining our tests plays a very important role is what I think. And I think most of us here from the quality background have heard about the test pyramid. Is anyone who's not aware of the test pyramid?
I guess you can briefly
Yeah,
touch here.
so what the test pyramid means is, at the base of your pyramid, you have the maximum number of tests which are supposed to be your unit tests. At the upper level of that, you have your service level or the API tests, which are slightly more stable, right? And at the topmost, the cone of your pyramid, you actually have your UI tests. The reason being, as an organization, we should invest more and more in unit testing, because that enables us to test it fast, it is less fragile, it is more maintainable, right? At the service level, I think if we are having deployments in terms of microservices, it makes a lot of sense to test it out in a component-specific layer, right, wherein the API tests play a very important role. And coming back, the least investment should be ideally in the UI tests, because they can be brittle, they can be fragile, unreliable, they can take time and a lot of resources to execute, right? So what I feel is that is the basic approach that every organization should follow in terms of testing it out. Once we have done that, in our pipeline, we can integrate our tests accordingly. So say, for example, the first level of the pipeline, wherein we test in a dev branch and then decide whether we are supposed to take it in QA at all, there we should have maximum number of unit tests coverage, right? Later on, when we test a component separately, we can test more of APIs. And finally, at the integration layer, we have to deal with more of our UI-centric tests. And later on comes in our performance, our security suites, and the other things, right? Which are more of the non-functional tests. And after that, definitely we have a stage environment where we feel we'll be able to mock something specific to the
Sure,
customer.
we'll get into it.
Yeah.
I think we have more tough questions for it in that phase. Okay. So the other thing is, I guess most of us already seen Agile, we know. So one thing probably we know in Agile is that projects which fall in the complex space are the right candidates for Agile. So what I'm trying to get into is, shall we go for DevOps for all projects? Is it really necessary to adopt DevOps for everything. So how can we identify as leaders, as leads, as engineers, that is my project really a candidate for DevOps? So what are the aspects we should look for to that? I think it's over to Panay, and then we'll start with it.
It's tempting to say yes, we should go for DevOps. There's a very famous saying that when you have a hammer, everything looks like an edge. Right? I have a DevOps team. I want to use this team to solve every problem. Right? It's very tempting to do that, and many organizations do that. Right? So what happens in such situations is when you jump in, when you jump before you look, what happens is that the tools are in place, the people are trained, but then the problems are not getting solved. Right? What is important before you decide whether you want to have DevOps or not is to identify the problems you want to solve and what are the goals. Right? What are the areas which, when addressed, you will consider that as success. Right? I think Vijay or Jatin talked about that. Define your success criteria first. Right? If your problems are in scope creep, right? Or if your problems are in build breaks, right? The tools will help you detect build breaks faster. It's not going to solve that problem. You need to find the right ointment for the right tool. Right? So that's very critical.
So you need to identify the pain areas and
Exactly.
take your strategy according to the pain areas.
Correct. Sometimes the tools will help you solve some of the immediate problems.
Correct.
It is important that we look that we maintain a foresighted view of where we want to take this solution, how far we want to take the solution, and what is the end goal.
Right.
We should not succumb to the immediate pleasure of seeing the smaller problems getting fixed and then continue in the same mode. That's important.
So coming to tools, thing. So we have a huge portfolio of DevOps tools, and we see updates in LinkedIn and Google Feed every day. Some new tools are coming in, and DevOps talks about automation of everything, starting from infrastructure, build, deploy, everything to be automated. So Ashley, can you just briefly help us understand that how to categorize these tools and what does this automation mean?
As you said, it is very tempting to try out everything that is out there in the market, and we may end up overdoing it. So continuing with the theme that Prasad mentioned, we need to identify what works for us, right? And what is the goal that we have to achieve. So the example that had worked for us, our most important aim was to reduce time to market. So time to market, we need to be able to do builds every day. From every month, if needed, I need to deliver a bug-free code every day to production. So given that, what is it that I need to do? So first important thing is I need to have my continuous delivery in place. I need to have my continuous integration in place. What kind of deployment is a result of my production infrastructure? The tool that I worked on was it is a microservice, but not a microservice. It's an independent service that is there in place. And then at the same time, there are certain customizations that are there wherein not just single deployment is going to help. So the continuous integration tool that is there, it helped us a lot, as well as having the knowledge of the deployment tool, like a chef tool, and the Nexus repository, the artifact repository is there, right? So we were very much tempted to use Dockers, we were very much tempted to use Kubernetes, but we realized that it is not useful for us in the kind of deployment that we are doing. So we were very much tempted to try even, the Dockers was not useful because of the deployment time that are doing or the infrastructure that is available. So what I would suggest is that though there are a lot of things that are available in the market, what will help you is precisely the problem that you are solving, and solve one problem at a time, and ensure that you will be able to keep up with the new trends of that is what I would suggest.
Okay, makes sense. So so similar to other lines is mostly in the large organizations, right? It's like a composition of again another set of small companies, and each of these smaller companies inside the large companies, they start performing separate silos and they have a separate tool stack and all. So do anyone have any experience any challenges you faced, or anyone from the audience want to talk around that? For a large organization, you see someone is using Jenkins, but the other team they're using TeamCity. I guess one of the team members put the point. So anyone facing similar issues? Because this is one of the questions which came as an input. Just want to hear. Like, what is the challenge facing? So from the panel, we want to
Yes.
address it.
So I'll share my experience with what happened when I was at Appian. By the way, I'm no longer with Appian.
Okay.
So that doesn't matter. So when I was with Appian, Appian is owned by a private equity firm, and the way they grow is either through organically, through customer acquisition and retention, or through inorganic growth, through acquisition of other product lines or through companies.
Correct.
And if you just look at the year 2015, the number of acquisitions that Appian did in order to grow its portfolio is about 9 companies. It acquired 9 companies. Okay? And these 9 companies came with very different tool sets, starting from your own source control. Appian was into TFS, right? And nobody else was in TFS because it was considered to be a Microsoft thing, right? And because the companies that we acquired were in the startup mode, they were all on Git, they were using Jira, okay? And they had much more advanced CI and CD capabilities, while we were like still trying to figure out what the whole world is going to be looking like, correct?
Okay.
And when we got them on board, so it was a good learning for us in terms of what is the right thing to do. But then there's certain rigidity within an organization structure which mandates that tools have to be standardized,
Correct.
right? So in many ways, we kind of took them a few steps backward by getting them to migrate from their tool set to the chosen tool set, because there are about 40 product lines in the company which are already using that. It doesn't make sense for these 40 to go to the other 9, and it was felt that it's easier for the 9 to come and align with the existing tool set. So going back, the point I'm trying to make is that it's important that we standardize on the tool set. And many organizations, when they start off on DevOps, they go through a pilot phase, they go through a discovery and evaluation phase to figure out what are the tools that work for us, what are the cost implications, do they suit our kind of product lines, for the kind of customers that we have, do they have the capabilities to be able to rapidly deploy to this set of customers. Like someone pointed out, our customers, some customers don't upgrade fast, right? Do we really need these kinds of tool sets? How far down the DevOps path do we go? Right? Those kinds of questions have to be done before you start off your DevOps journey.
Great. So to tell you this, one thing that's quite prompting me is like, so when you do build this strategy, who do you think should be part of the decision making? Because if you involve too many people, that also creates a little chaos. So according to the panel, who do you think makes the right team to take the call?
Very loaded question, I would say. In an organization, I have seen that it's hard to keep out people from such decisions. Everyone wants to be part of it.
That gentleman there would like to have that answer. Like, who do you think should take the right decision? Because he's talking about distributed.
That's one of the other things. But adding to this, I have another question.
Yeah, please.
I mean, being in a management, I have 15 years of experience and leading a QA team. Each individual QA team has its own client, and each client has its own tool. Now, if I have to lay down a process in each team, that's one of the goal. Now, one of the customers says, he is very reluctant, I will only use Microsoft products. You don't bring me any open source tool. So he is very like, I'll use VSTS. One is saying that I'll use Jira, TFS. Now, how will you, make, client, understand that, we are trying to come up with a, standardized process and all those things. And we are working in different domains. It's embedded, it's payment solutions, web-based, cloud, everything. So they have their own kind of, usage of tools. So how will you work on that?
So are you in the services world? Fair point. So do you have something called as a DevOps Center of Excellence?
We don't have right now.
Okay. Usually I've seen that some companies create a Center of Excellence. Okay. And if you look at the DevOps paradigm, it says you have to do this, but it doesn't say you have to use this tool. The tool set is large, right? What the COE typically does is, they have people with varied knowledge of different tools, right? And in the services world, it's a given that we follow what the client wants us to do. We don't have the right or the power to say, I'm not going to use Jira, I will stick to VSTS. That's not going to fly. So The tools that are there, if you look at Jenkins for example, it's capable of working with various source control providers. Similarly, if you look at any of the other CD pipelines,
So,
they work with that.
right.
So what services companies typically do is they build a DevOps framework which is capable of working with multiple client set. And the dashboards, etc., they build something called as a unified console. Right? If you want to look at the dashboard for your entire deployment and everything else, they build a unified console which gets data from different tools and presents the same view to various clients. The tools are different.
I'm absolutely right. But when I'm suggesting that you need to we have center of excellence, DevOps and all those things, but certain customers are so coming to financial aspect, they don't want to use any open source tools. They are okay because Microsoft provides all kind of a support to them. They're direct, the CTO is directly talking to Bill Gates and all those things, right?
Correct.
So in that manner, if I have to say that you bring Jenkins, you bring open source tools where I can do all these things, he says no, you use whatever I will tell.
Correct.
So with that approach, 50% or 40% is what you can achieve, right?
So
And in other thing, there is another pure where we do only V and verification validation, right? V and V. Development is doing, somebody is doing, and at the end we'll just get a build where we do our automation and testing. That's only the scope. That's the only job of the QA. So where my DevOps comes into picture. But here itself again, one part of the left side where I can only, build is already ready. You do automation. You just do a continuous integration of my own build of the test automation and do that. That's just 30% of what we do, right?
Correct.
So each project has its own kind of challenges there. So one is client, again agile, DevOps, it has to come from the top management. It's not a bottom-up approach, it is come from the top. At one moment of time when the management, senior management say that whatever you do, I want this release to happen next week. Your DevOps, your agile things does not come into picture. So each project has its, that's
very
what.
valid point. Very valid point. You can answer this and come back. Right. It's a great point about the client dictating a lot of the timelines and doing what we have to do, right? But then if you look at how the services industries have moved, the whole of the service industry has thrived based on upselling. Okay, you start with V&V. You get a build, I'll verify this and then give it to you. But then it never ever stops there. If it does that, the company is not going to grow. That's where the COE starts making offerings and then they upsell a lot of stuff. Right? You start with dev. Slowly it spreads.
And
Right.
That's one of the
it needs
this thing
to
that
grow.
from V&V, we work for Blackstone Group, private equity company. They had their own this thing. We did only V&V. Then we got the development from different thing. But again, there are so much challenges that since it's a private equity and a financial this thing, they don't even let us know what's the data inside, masking and all those things. So it's very hard to suggest them to do something.
Very
If
valid
you
point.
very
since there is a legacy systems involved, they don't want to go keep your agile DevOps aside. This is what is my process. This is what we are doing since 50 years. So do this.
So it's probably
I
this
think
question.
the challenge that he's talking about is prevailing in many organizations.
Many
It's
organizations,
not
Right,
just-
right. I mean,
Sure.
it's an ideal situation where
Yes, this is an ideal situation.
big organization where your DevOps team is there, center of excellence is there. Ideal situation, it works. A small company where we are 1,500 to 2,000 people across organization, where we are trying to at least step into the DevOps culture, we are facing these kind of problem. And one of the thing is what I said about the distributed model, which where embedded testing, even your agile DevOps is not working. Because
I will probably take this. I think not sure if that is answered. I would probably take this in a little different way. So presently I'm in Dell, and Dell is going through a transformation. There are many projects which are like 20 years, 30 years, legacy products, right? So they're moving to microservices to move faster and all. And we're also having the same challenge. A few teams are in Git, a few teams are in TFS, few are using TeamCity, few are using Jenkins. I guess fundamentally for test team, right, it's a culture. I think your strategy is what? Like once a build comes in, I need to test, I need to have automation suite, I need to have a BBT suite. So first that strategy needs to be defined, and then you go into the tooling section, because at the end of the day you will automate, right? And that will be integrated in the pipeline. And whatever build tool you use, your test will get triggered and that will give you feedback, right? So that fundamental theory is not changing in any of the tool set. So I guess that's a slow way to adapt,
But then it's limited, when you say that, CI/CD pipeline or, see, embedded, when I say that, somebody is controlling us, you within the team, you are, committing your code to Git and, you are doing it. It's within the team. I'm still, emphasizing on that. Because the major control of the Git central repository is in the X company, what is happening. So you are doing right now here within the team, okay, let's say another Y company is doing it. But after this, you again have to do a manual thing where you need to have VPN access, where the whole who is handling, then you commit that and get the code. So there are multiple things.
I guess probably
happening
these are the
here.
areas where Prasad was mentioning that a DevOps architect person can help you, and Git provides a good amount of authorization. So it's not that to test it, it needs to be worked. So there are ways to work out it. I guess it's more about the leadership and the architects need
The
to
big
handle
thing
it.
is the decision maker needs to be
problem with it, right? Like, one thing I'm telling to understand,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, those constraints are there, and like somebody else is calling the shots. I mean, if that's the reality, then that's the reality.
Right.
I
So
mean, like, so what's the problem?
No,
here is
I'm
something else
saying
to say.
even if you try implementing the DevOps there, such kind of environment where you at the most you can achieve 30 to 40%. It's not an ideal situation where right. So one of the question which they ask where DevOps does not fit, right?
We should like you're going to find a lot of these edge cases, right? Like all over the place. But like if you are going from 5 or 10%
No,
to 30
but the
or
goal
40%
is again.
of progress, that's great. Like we'll move forward. Right?
And everyone is talking about a progression. It's not that we'll achieve 100% in day one. So
Yeah.
even if you can achieve 30%, I think seeing that benefit, organization will realize, okay, it's working for us. Because for you, as you mentioned, the moment it's considered as different siloed teams, the fundamental concept of DevOps is lost. Because we want everyone to be part of a single team. If everyone is considered, because that trust factor, right, which is a fundamental one of the DevOps principle, that team need to trust and the blame game should not be there. That it's not my team's issue, it's your team's issue. So that this is the fundamental principle of DevOps is defeated there itself.
No,
So
and DevOps in itself cannot solve all the problems.
All the problems.
So these are all, we have to be creative enough to look into how we can solve it.
No, companies
And
who are
most of it-
transforming, who are going there, they know, okay, we have to be like this, we have to do like this. The end goal is I have to implement this. But again, these many
sure,
challenges.
but it's definitely a
right?
valid
At the
point.
end of the day, the decision maker has to believe in this idea. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's not going to fly. You can talk endlessly, but then it's not going to fly. Period.
So any of the other DevOps anti-patterns which you think is not working from the crowd, we'd love to hear. I think this is a very, very
If I can pause you, the
Yes.
gentleman there had to.
Oh, sure. Yes, sorry. Introduce yourself if you don't mind.
I'm Manohar Shantaraman. I work for Capgemini. I
Okay.
have over 20+ years of experience, and currently I am doing a kind of R&D on the automation. So we have a special COE kind of stuff, and where we evaluate product, and I lead that COE, and where I focus cataloging, because Capgemini from the outside world it's one single company, but then within that it has got 6 companies, and it is known for acquisition. Recently, a couple of years before we acquired iGate, where they have the good presence in North America. So every company, we call those as business units. Every business unit, has their own way of working, and then it goes by region. Predominantly, if you put this English speaking and non-English speaking. Capgemini, being a French company, their lot of business comes from the European region, and we have to cater for them. And on the other hand, North America, as we all know, the major IT provider are inputs or business coming up from that region. So that was one of the reasons for us to acquire iGate. And in addition to that, we are looking for some pure players as well to change the culture of the organization. So in that situation, what happened is we had to explore tools, process, frameworks, a lot of things, and they were operating in silos. And when we are looking for automation, we wanted to go for automation. And I don't have any platform, say that yes, I have this is my starting, but from where I can jump in and then go for an automation. Automation just like that cannot happen overnight if I'm operating in silos, right? So that's where our team started in 2016, where especially myself and my team evaluate a lot of products, and we have developed our own portal because we are 200k plus employees within the Capgemini group, and we want to have one single place where they can look for products and then they get the details, be it an automation or automation on the AM space and application management or maintenance, development, and then infrastructure. So that's where we developed the portal, and we're like he was saying, the same problems. Okay, his customer is with Microsoft, and he's not ready to move to some other place. So what we did is we developed a lab. Okay, and instead of we starting our talking to somebody in at the senior management level, we go 1 or 2 levels up, and then we invite them for a visit, or rather our on-site folks will go and showcase the portal where we have these details and walk him through. We go at the top and say, okay, today you are here and tomorrow you wanted to go here, and what is the gap and what is that you are going to achieve in this exercise or this drill work. So that's where we could crack through some of his problems. I'm a Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft for a number of years. So change, it is the change, and change is should happen with all the stakeholders. 1,
Correct.
and 2, without the change, we will not be able to successfully do the DevOps. People, okay, it's all in the people. And when I came, Mr. Jitendra was putting the first point as the people. That mindset, okay, should change, and that mindset should change with every stakeholder. It's not one person. If anybody is in silo, if the build is in silo, then I'm not successful with my DevOps. And similarly with the developer and the testing community, we all should work together, be it a customer or a service provider. It's all we should work hand in hand so that we'll be successful in implementing this DevOps. Otherwise, I think
Great point.
Yeah.
Change, collaboration,
change, yes,
and collaboration.
change
That's the
is the
takeaway.
first.
Thank you.
2 is the platform.
Thank
And
you.
Then your problem will be addressed, gentlemen.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the input.
Tools is the last time, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's where real experience helps. Thank you. Thank you so much for the input. Yeah. So now probably over to Tina. Tina, so we have, let's say, someone is studying with the DevOps, right? So where is testing comes in? So we want everything to be tested as part of the CI/CD, right? So what do you think as a quality leader that should happen?
Right. So initially in my last question, I think I mentioned about the test pyramid, right? So going forward in the same direction, what I feel is again the test categorization and when to, in my pipeline, at what stage, what tests need to be executed is a very important factor which the QA team has to keep in mind, right? And that has to happen with the handshake of the dev team itself, because see, for example, the UT is totally the stake of the dev team, right? So there again, I feel the way we are categorizing, so for example, our BVT. So what tests belong to this particular suite, right? So we have to first decide and define that.
Build verification.
Yeah,
test,
the build
right?
verification
Yeah.
test, right? Rather the acceptance criteria. So there should be a very solid process around defining what is the acceptance criteria to take on any build, right? Without which we'll say that, okay, we are not going to accept this build in QA, and probably that will go as part of the feedback loop in DevOps, wherein we'll have that refinement done, corrected, and then after we meet a certain percentage, we'll be taking that build in QA. So all these kind of various processes can come into picture. So I can quote one small example from my current workplace. So I worked in both these places, Sprinkler and Lithium, which deal with kind of similar product, but the tech stack is completely different in both of these. So Sprinkler is completely oriented out of components, and a lot of my microservices are there, which makes it much easier to maintain my CI/CD pipelines and to validate at a very quick pace of time, right? Whereas in Lithium, most of the code base is a monolith. So there, the kind of challenges that we face is to what extent we can implement continuous testing there. So some of the challenges initially we faced, and luckily we had a very good supportive team as part of the tech ops who were hosted in SF in San Francisco office, and they helped us a lot to implement a lot of process changes. So when you spoke about, for example, Prasad, say for example in your previous company, right, multiple of these products together, I have faced a similar scaled down version of the same problem wherein in the Bangalore center we are dealing with 6 different projects, and all of these projects can have their own standardized way to test, to merge builds, and even the criteria to merge a build or to accept a change is totally different amongst all these projects that we run, right? So we actually tried to figure out what can be the best solution to have a common practice implemented across all these project teams. And for that, we did a lot of evaluation about the best practices that can be possible, which will help us achieve test fast and test early, both of these principles, right? So there we came up with a collaborative approach. All the dev leads and the dev managers also got together. The QA manager was involved, and we tried to standardize and take inputs from various projects as to what is the best thing that can be done overall. Because again, the code base is a monolith. So indirectly, all these project teams will be benefited out of it. Right?
Standardization is a must-have.
Yes, standardization definitely is a
Great.
must.
Okay.
And currently what we have is, we were actually explaining in Jatin's presentation also, right, that what is the typical frequency or the ideal frequency in which actually I run my pipeline, right, or I merge my changes. So currently in Lithium, if I see, it's actually every time the pipeline gets triggered for each commit. So I wouldn't say that's the best way, because there are challenges to that, right? There are downsides of that as well. But at least we are ensuring that for each commit, the build that triggers, that is green, and that is not having any other dependencies broken and many things in that.
So I have one question for it.
Yes.
So in our present we are facing a similar issue. So if every commit creates a pipeline, so all the developers in the organization are not in the same experience level or same expertise level.
Right.
So that code review need to happen, and then it should come, and then it should go to pipeline.
Absolutely.
So over to the dev roles. Do you really think that every commit need to start a pipeline? Is it really a good practice?
Okay, I'll take that. I think it perfectly makes sense. And adding to the point that Tina mentioned about the inverted pyramid, and one term that was mentioned about left shifting the testing, right? So, however less or more experienced the developer is, the criteria that the person, a small change or bigger change, has to be included with unit tests, and having that along with a certain set of tests which will ensure that the sanity of the build is there, and especially in case if we have to deploy every day, I think it is very critical. And any basic developer, any fresher developer expecting the person to know the unit testing and have a buddy, let's say code review, right? I mean, we used Gerrit as a code review tool here. We are using Stash and Lithium, and then ensuring another thing that helped us was using commit hooks. So which will ensure, along with the code coverage, it will ensure that your smoke testing or any kind of testing that is done locally, that helps a lot to ensure that we are whatever release we are doing is cleaner. And I have no qualms in having.
So one thing is like we are currently, the market is more towards ready to market. Ship a product, we need to just show it to the customer, right? So the moment we bring in unit testing and all, it delays the project. I think that's the way program management they all see. So how much buying are we getting on that part?
So I'll add one more thing to it, right? So the quality as a responsibility of the team, and having a coverage maintained, right? So one of the culture things that we did in our team was that the automation is not responsibility for a person just with a QA role, right? Automation coverage is responsibility of the team. So there were times when we were little less on customer commitments. The developer also contributed to the automation suite and ensured that 80% coverage is there. If we have the base perfect, then incremental changes are much more easier. And we were able to show to our program management that I'm spending time front heavy, spending time to do it, but my release time is reduced from 1 month to 1 week. Then we were able to get that buy-in as well.
ROI
That's
matters.
ROI. That's what
So we were able to prove that, and
Correct.
we were able to get that buy-in.
I'd like to add one more point to what Ashisha said about unit testing and automation. Percentage of coverage of automation is a team goal, right?
True.
So going back to your scenario, there are situations where your sales is in an RFP, right? And they need to be able to check a box somewhere and also be able to demonstrate it. So it's always a trade-off between how quickly can you go to the market versus in what form do you want to go to the market. Do you want to take a half-baked product, right? That's where the concept of these feature flags come in. Especially if you're a cloud-based product, right? I have had situations where in a week's time you build a feature, right? Unit testing goes out of the window. Get it working. It's got to show on the UI. Everything's hard-coded. Okay, but we need to get past that checkbox from that stage of the RFP to the next one, right? So build it and then put a feature flag in so that it doesn't impact anybody else. There's a separate demo environment where it is turned off and the feature shows up. But then the moment that thing is getting productized, that is when we slow down and then build in unit tests, because it is now part of, it's not a one-off. Right? Exceptions can be made for one-off features that you want to give a quick and dirty solution for somebody.
True.
But when it is repetitive and in your system, it's a trade-off between whether you want to spend the time upfront doing the automation or whether you want 5 QA people to sit and then do it repeatedly every bit.
True, makes sense. So,
So in fact there is another trend which is coming in fact, and we are looking at implementing. I don't know how it is going to impact us, but it's for all the QA folks who call ourselves as QA. So we are actually removing the word called QA and dev. Okay. And also looking at making organizations flat. And anybody in the organization, so matter it's like a manager, QA manager or dev manager, those roles will not even exist. And this is actually going to be in reality in a couple of months now.
correct.
That has already been announced. So anybody, whoever is there in the team has to be playing some Scrum role. I can be a Scrum Master and I may not have anybody reporting into me directly. And they are making it very flat organization. And the intent is, how do we make this whole transformation of DevOps very seamless, and it's all business driven. So there are roles and all, whatever it takes for us to actually change it so drastically, like as we may not have as many managers as what we have today. So those are also good.
Okay, good input. At least straight for the managers in the group to skip. Lighter note.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So one question to Prasad, like this feature toggling and all. I guess many of us are here from the QA. So are you doing it in a present organization? Are you facing it? Anyone? Because there is an interesting point related to feature toggling. At least in my present team, my team is burning a lot with feature toggling. So
Feature
anyone?
flags, if you call it that way,
feature-
like feature flags.
Okay. So
I mean, you mean to say not fully developed features?
no, it's feature toggling. Like switch on, switch off. the feature.
Enabling or disabling a feature.
The availability of the feature is controlled by either some config file or some checkbox somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess Raghu, you want to put this question, the challenge from the test team was for the feature toggling?
Yeah, you know it much better.
Probably we have to hear from the team that what's the challenge from the testing.
The challenge is something like you take it in the automation perspective itself. Okay, there is a feature which has been developed. Now I have all the tests written. The automation scripts are ready, running. Okay, now when it goes to you have to test the same. You have turned off the feature, and you go to the production. Now you have to make sure nothing is breaking because of that feature. Yet my feature flag is broken. Then the team or the people, whoever is driving this entire release, they will be expecting run a complete regression. Okay, would it really make sense to run a regression when I turn off the flag and do it?
Yes and no, depending on what world you are in, right? If you're in a mission critical application, answer would be yes. Right? No risks taken, no chances taken. Right? And what I have seen with feature flags in most environments is that they are short-lived, right? Or they are customer specific. So what then happens is that even if you look at a cloud environment, you don't have a single environment for all customers. It is not very uncommon to see different environments for specific customers, depending on the kind of features that they have, right? If your licensing scheme covers it, well and good. Otherwise, it is a common practice to build customer-specific environments where your flag is turned on.
But at the same time, it adds another thing, right? So it introduces a technical debt in your code, right? Because I'm managing a portion of code only for a particular person and not the entire code base is managed for everyone who is using the application.
Correct.
So it is introducing a technical debt for me. So at that time, it's not onto the place. I feel DevOps is also one person who can give a guidelines to the development team as well as the QA team or whoever is owning the entire product. They have to be ready to give a guidelines like this is a right way to do it or this is not a right way to do it. So at that time, introducing a technical debt and also seeing a vision for the product, would it be important to have a different line for this, or to maintain the same way, let it go, okay, it's working for us?
Okay, so when you're building something and controlling something with a feature flag, it could be multiple reasons, right? One, you're not sure of it, you want to test it out, right? Or it is specific to a customer. And either way, if it is specific to a customer, you're stuck with it. You either need to find a way to get other customers to use it. If it breaks every other customer, then you're stuck with maintaining it for one specific customer. And it's a very common practice, right? Money talks. Some customer pays, we maintain it, period. Right? It's that simple.
And it could be one customer.
Yes, exactly, one customer, right? And that is where the professional services organization is needed, because they are the ones who are managing all the customizations, right? Not all products have a framework for customization, so you have customer-specific code branches, you have customer-specific builds, everything's there. And that's going to slow you down when you actually make your new releases. The best practice is to minimize as much of it as you can. The second case of where your feature is not fully stabilized, but you want to get customer feedback, right? Feature flags are put in place, and typically you would put that, take the build as far as your user acceptance testing environment. You would be very careful before putting it into production. It should stop ideally at the UAT, because your production should not get impacted by any way. Even verifying whether the feature flag is turned on or not in a production environment is more additional work, and that you should ideally stay away from.
So I would like to add one point to here is, as if your early testing suite is strong enough to be able to contain regression on other features, right? Which was the question that you asked earlier about how is good to trigger entire pipeline on every commit. So there has to be certain things which will ensure that integrity of your build, and feature flag on, I mean, even if you have feature flag on or not, I think such things should be caught early in your build, whether it affects or not, right? So it always helps.
So it's a good ammunition, but we need to use it properly. So on a closing note, we just share one stats. So in our present data Dell, so we are using feature toggling for last 2 years. So at present we have 3,000 featured flags which are available in the code, okay, and no one has found it necessary to clean it up. So again, how then? So this is my current organization. So there is a huge take that to clean the feature toggles, okay. So we need to clean it, but
It's unnecessary garbage code, right? You
we
don't
need to clean it, but someone has to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is it. So similarly, I guess when Tina and myself were in Amazon, so Amazon has a specific way to do feature toggling. So we were using WebLab, and there the situation is any feature can be in a toggle mode for at most 1 month, and post that it's keep on escalating to your skip levels. Okay, and after 3 months, a developer will be questioned probably with a VP that why your flag is still there in the code. So that is the stringent things they have put in their process. So ammunitions are good, but your organization need to have the right policies to use it as well. Okay.
Just wanted to add half a minute point, one more, to answer bugs in production for feature flags, right? One way can be A/B testing, which is very common, and the other way can be blueprint deployments, right? The way we see. So parallelly, we are trying to test amongst both these features, right, with on and off at the same time, and being able to compare them with A/B testing. And we are able to take a call that, okay, am I in a right position to turn on my feature in production? So that will give me more of confidence, at least before releasing it. So that is one very commonly adapted approach, I feel, and A/B testing really helps.
But A/B testing is in the same way, right? Where the feature is by default turned on.
Yeah.
Okay. But for a particular set of users, it is going on, and for a particular set of users, it's going off. But the technical data is already introduced, and it is live in production.
So what you can do is A/B testing you can implement also in your stage environment, the pre-prod, which I feel, and that will give us one more chance to preempt before it goes to production. So you need not only turn it on specifically in production, you can have a separate environment to kind of mimic both these features at the same time, both these behaviors, and be able to compare them. And based on that, you can take a call when is it the right approach to enable. So just one suggestion to be able to preempt bugs earlier.
Good points. So A/B testing, blue-green deployments are the new ways to introduce in your test strategy. Good point. Okay, Tina, over to you. So one thing probably came from all these discussions in the panel and previous discussions that development is moving to distributed SOA architecture and all this, right? So I guess traditionally our QA is more experienced on end-to-end testing, business flow. So how testing is evolving in this new model, if I need to test or qualify only this component, what is the strategy or what is that SZ or automation engineer need to look for to qualify?
Yeah. One thing which I can think of, and that is quite difficult to attempt or complete, I think, is the way the dev code is written. If our test framework can be aligned to completely align to the same model in which our code is structured. So say for example, it's completely a component-based architecture, and under your main folder, you are having various components, right? The way we break it up in test is totally aligned to that. The advantage that I've seen here, I've read somewhere, though we haven't implemented, with our code coverage metrics, right, we will be able to get an exact mapping. Say for example, a particular API changes, what are the different class files wherein that change could have had an impact? That will help you to decide and enable upfront what are the typical tests you will run in your pipeline instead of running all tests at all times. So that is one way where I think the structuring the automation framework can play a key role, and where you will be able to optimize your time, save time in terms of not choosing all tests to run with every commit.
Okay.
So that can have.
So fundamentally we all know this, but over to you that since you have seen DevOps CI/CD pipelines, live CI/CD pipelines in a previous company. So what are the tests you think that QA should enable in the CI/CD pipeline at a component level to verify a component? We are saying that we will qualify a component separately and we are not to do end-to-end testing, all this. So what are the tests do you feel really that makes sense?
You want to take that first?
I really would like to hear from three of you.
Anybody also?
Audience as well. So anyone want to take from the audience this question first, that how can we qualify a component independently? So what is the testing strategy? I guess to the leaders, Yatin, Kurmi.
I feel it's completely on the, it's a fragile one, basically onto the component level when you say. So when you introduce it into a CI, nothing existing should break, and also the new ones which are there, the basic one should at least continue to function. If that is not working, then there is no point of going further. So the basic level of new features added, and as well as a core functionalities which are already present in the system, those should suffice us. Not only the BVTs, when you say build verification test, that only doesn't cover the part for the CI. It should cover even the existing functionalities as well as the new functionalities. Should always, this should be, in a revolving basis, like you keep adding and removing the test cases.
So
And I think that just keeping the component focus alone will not solve the problem. We have to look at stage by stage. So first I'm testing the component, as you mentioned, like not just the BVD kind of tests. I also have to do a little more functional tests around the functionality which are already built. That should be taken care by my the art, maybe which runs at a later stage from the functionality point of view, but it still runs because for end customer, it's not just the component which is actually shipping, it's the entire product. So we have to look at stage by stage and then ensure that component is already qualified in silo, which works fine. Then there is the integration piece, maybe with the other component it actually integrates, and there are no integration issues. Then as a product, when the complete suite is available, then how does it actually fare? So it has to be a complete.
correct.
So I just can share.
Yep.
Sorry, my name is Kurmi and I work for SAP. So what you mentioned and what Jatin mentioned, so your imagination is reality in SAP. So we select this. Test cases are automatically selected. It's in a repository based on the changes. Test cases are selected and they get executed. And what Jatin said is, then there's a people behind the decision making also, while there's an automated way. So the people behind looks at what additional connectivity points are important in covering that, and that is beyond the BVP. So those are the other areas that we sit down to decide. And we are also building heuristics to make that happen, but today that's manually done. So engineers sit down together and say that based on these interactions, these test cases are important, and they feed it. It's like a stack. It's a magazine of test cases. So they just get fired one after the other, and the test results are taken to make a decision to go or not go. A lot of automation has gone into place.
Thanks, Kurmi. This is pretty valuable to hear. To add to what everyone else has said so far, just as in the CI world, right, it's possible to just build what has changed, right? So we are seeing that it is also possible to exactly test what has changed and determine the scope of the surface of change, right? Just as QA has built these tests in a granular fashion. If you look at the development world, things are also being built in a granular fashion. And we've talked of microservices, right? But microservices itself are sometimes big. So the world is moving towards what's called as nanoservices, right? So I'm working with a few people right now who are actually building nanoservices. So those of you who are interested can read up what nanoservices are and how it's going to make life even simpler, perhaps more complicated. Depending on which side of the middle you're looking at.
But it will completely move to microservice.
It is more complex to become simpler.
Simplicity comes at a price, right?
Okay, so one last question from the panel, and then we will open it to the audience. It's like we are talking about microservice, these good things, but what happens is effectively is like this team owns 10 components, this team owns 10 components, and some of the components of this team is not working. My tests are failing. I tried it and say that these tests are failing because of not for me but for this, and that adds bandwidth to the team to do it. So how to actually what Prasad was pointing, right? Test for the change that has happened. Don't test for everything. So in a way, this BBT, all these tests are flaky because you can't ensure that all these components are in a stable state in CI environment. So the panel and to Gurmi, Jatin, because we are all doing it. So what is the best practices to handle this? That's a takeaway we want the community as a whole to spread.
So when you're building your test system, it's important that you verify the test system first. Right? You need to have a trustworthy test system into which is robust enough.
The test system has to be tested.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Your test system has first got to be validated. If mostly what happens is you don't buy something off the shelf and then put it into production. Right? You either build something from the ground up, or you take an existing framework, build a couple of other frameworks into it, and then suit it to meet your organizational needs. That's got to be validated first. If your automation system is flaky, if your build is giving you greens when actually there are problems, then there's either a problem with the way the test system is built, or with the way tests are built, or with the way the code is built. Right?
True. So the systems also needs to be tested.
Absolutely. It's like before you jump onto the safety net, make sure it's tight. It's as simple as
I
that.
think that's one of the biggest challenge. In fact, top management thinks, oh, we have done automation means everything is taken care and quality is taken care. But they just miss the point that automation is also a piece of code.
Exactly.
It has to go through its own cycle of it, that maturity, and then it has to be tested, it has to be tried and then deployed, and all those things are kind of overlooked.
Yes.
So one thought I had was last small bit.
Sure.
So we are all talking about testing the product, testing the product. How many of us have really realized that we need to test our own test systems, like Krishnan said. So it has, like Jatin said, it has got its own life. Okay. So if you will realize, okay, if you go a little deeper into our own test system, that a test case executed once completely becomes stale, because the ability for it to find a bug, unless a developer makes a mistake, is zero. Okay. So the test system itself has to go through bigger metamorphosis as the product goes into the market.
So before pointing mistake at others, because you actually make sure that that's really a mistake and you know what it is.
Right.
Right? That's what the testing is all about.
Evolving together.
See, DevOps, there are no others. Right? Everything's the same.
Yeah, Tina, you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add another point. Your initial question that you asked, that how do we ensure we are testing a component individually and we are handling dependency downtimes, things like that, right? Because usually in an end-to-end system flow, there will be a lot of subsystems interacting with each other, downstream services and other components, right? So if the change has gone into a specific component, only testing that initially in silo, just to make sure Prasad's point is holding good there, right? That whatever we have coded for, the code changes or the data that goes in, at least that is tested first. To handle that, I think creating mocks for the components will be a good idea. We have tools in the market like Mockito, which can help us achieve that. Creating mocks or stubs. So probably that is a place wherein the dev team can handshake with the QA team to provide that upfront. The QA team validates that in a silo, and then we move on to our integrated tests. Just to make sure that that code piece is not breaking something in the first place. So at least that is ensuring what it's supposed to meant to do. And then we move to the integration test.
Great. Ashlesh, closing on some highlights.
I think another point on testing the test suite, right? One of the important aspects of DevOps is the feedback loop, right? The feedback loop we are talking only in terms of our different environments, stage and production. but what I've seen has helped is the feedback loop from the production bugs as well. Right? Any production issues that are being seen, ensuring that they are integrated in our test suite and we are able to catch them and fix them in our test suite helps us, has helped us reduce or strengthen our automation suite as well, so that we are not just automating which is being developed, and also automation is completely running in parallel with the development, so it is not following the those two things I think have helped us making the test suite strong.
So basically should go parallel,
Should
and
go.
adding to Kurmi's point, the evolving test should take the production feedback.
Production
To
feedback.
make the suit point. Okay, I think that's done, and probably for the interest of time, we'll just we'll take one question from the community. Yeah.
We talked about the automation and other things, right? The one thing that I'm facing in my organization, I'm basically from networking and telecommunication. So one thing is we cannot automate 100%. It's impossible to do it in the telecommunication and networking domain, right? So in this case, what is happening is the BBT we talked about, right? We have automation suite for BBT. It shows green. But when I take it, I'm from end-to-end solution. So when I take it, it doesn't work. When I go back to the automation engineer, I ask him why it is failing. It shows green for you. He's saying that no, I'm not testing this scenario. This scenario is not part of this suite. And I cannot really test this in automation because we need routers, switches. There are a lot of interaction with the hardware, in the application software. You have the software on the hardware itself, then the firmware. There are a lot of things. So end of the day, 100% automation is not helping. And at the same time, manually we cannot test all the scenarios also, right? So when it goes to the customer, we'll get issues saying that this is not working. Then they'll come and check, okay, did you cover this test case? No. I cannot cover all the test cases manually. At the same time, we cannot automate everything also. So this is something, a real-time issues that we are facing, especially from the telecommunication networking background. When I think Vijay, when he asked for the automation, right, I told 40%. That's because we cannot cover everything. That's the reality, right? So in this scenario, how DevOps is helping? I mean, because we cannot cover manually and we cannot cover with the automation also.
If there are issues with understanding the scope of what is done, for example, the BVT is successful, but then downstream you are encountering issues that you think should have been caught with BVT, then you have a collaboration problem. Right? There's some expectation mismatch between the two teams. Assuming we sort that out through better collaboration and then working together. If there are technical reasons why something cannot be automated and it's got to be manual, then your release cycles are going to be a little longer. You cannot aim or dream about 10 deployments a day. Right? You've got to work in the industry that we are on.
And also one point, I guess 6-7 years back when Naresh, Jatin, myself were all working in NetApp. So what we were doing is we had a similar, we worked more on the hardware side. We came up as, I guess when we talked to the management that these are the automation challenges, we got a help from them to get a simulator which simulates your thing. So basically the simulator you can get at least a compatibility part that this thing. So once you build the simulator and our management pushed for the simulated environment, right? Basically the same storage box, you have a simulator with all the capabilities and every feature is coming as the simulator version and also this thing, right? So that actually helped us, not only in the operational cost, I mean the capex cost in the test environment, test lab, it's also in the automation part and everything. So as everyone pointed, like there is no standard solution. You need to innovate and find out new ways to solve it.
That's a very good
yeah.
point, sir.
Yeah, I hope the panel discussion is helpful.
So I have one question. Can I say
Okay,
that?
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So right now we are talking about lots of process like Agile, DevOps, and all those things. So right now, my team, we started practicing Agile for the past 2 releases. So I've always observed that first 5 sprints we'll be following Agile so much, and towards the later releases we tend to fall back to the waterfall model. So in such scenario, how can I introduce DevOps to my team? Like what will be the starting point of it, and how easy or tough it is to achieve 100% over that?
Good question. So it's always, the hardest part is the start. Right? So depending on your project, I would suggest get some DevOps expert
Okay, I was about to add to that, like let's assume there is no DevOps team. So
So now what's happened is
You have
DevOps
to
has
act
kind
as
of
one. You have to set your
Yeah,
basics
so
right.
what is the starting point and how easy or tough it is to
correct.
make the
So
transition?
you can take the do-it-yourself approach. Okay, start with the tools. Okay, start with the tools. Put a basic CI there. Put some decent level of automation in there, so that you start saving some time that you can look at improving other parts. Right? But that's kind of beginning steps, baby steps.
No,
But then that's
I
not going to
think,
take you too long.
I think to start with, they should plan, take buy-in from people, because the people aspect is a major. If she
Exactly.
wants to do a change just by herself, it is not going to happen.
Exactly.
So
See,
it should,
the baby
it should
steps
work
will
as a
not take
team,
you
and
too
they
far.
all should decide that this is the problem we are looking at solving by following this process, because it's not just for the sake of following the process.
Yes.
Or maybe bringing a change. You need to be very clear, like what is that you want to achieve, whether it helps you to achieve, then take a collective approach in terms of, yes, this is the right approach, then start.
Yeah.
Then
So
probably
probably
you
we'll
And
close
for-
saying that let's go back to Vijay's presentation. At the end of this session, we expect everyone to be a transformation leader and bring changes to the organization in their own way. And you need to innovate and do it. Okay, thank you everyone.